Oh, all right. Well, thank you very, very much, Youngming. Pathways, you hear so much about it. It's a mystery to most, isn't it? And actually, it takes a little bit of learning, but you can be a master at working with pathways. So we're going to just dive right in. You heard about having to have an agenda? That's true. That's the target. No target, you can't hit it. Joe mentioned that earlier. So we have this as a target, the pathways machine, how to understand it. We're going to take a look at it and we're going to fasten our safety belts because this is going to be a quick trip. So you may want to see this a couple of times when the recording is completed. So we're going to jump right in. Basecamp managers, we're going to talk about that and who they are. And then we're going to jump into management responsibilities. That's a very, very important aspect of things. I'm going to cover a couple of things there that may not even be mentioned on the slides. So we're going to go through this, but we're going to approve awards. We mentioned recognition. I have a few recommendations there as well. Track member progress. We're going to learn all about that. Path knowledge. Yes, we're going to learn about the 11 paths a little bit and where to find the information. Pathways DTM. What is that? Well, we may have been familiar with the old DTM program if we were around for a while, but how about Pathways DTM? What is the requirement? We want to know a little bit about that. And of course, Speechcraft digital experience, which is part of that Pathways DTM path. We want to find out what we have to do as far as Speechcraft is concerned, because now it's a digital experience, just like the rest of Pathways. And then if we have time, we may not have time because there's a lot to cover here. Fasten your seat belts because we're going to fly through this, but we're going to try to squeeze in a couple of questions and answers. And with that, let's get going. Jump right in, as they say. Okay. Who are the Basecamp managers? Who are they? They are your VP of Education, who usually gets the request for approval of level awards. These are achievements. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. President can approve the awards and the secretary can approve the awards. Strangely enough, two of my three clubs, when people are coming in as new people, Joe mentioned, level ones become your focus. Can they get a level one? Can they achieve a level two? Well, for level ones, it just so happens two of my clubs have a number of new members that just joined, and we have little gifts that we present as awards. In one case, with one club, it's coffee mugs, and in another case, it's reusable stainless steel lined water bottles. And this is an achievement award. So we recognize people at the meetings. That's what it's all about, recognition. So we want to make sure we do that. You don't want to discourage your new members because if anything, you want to encourage them. And one way to do that is to have an award type of event held at your club, even if it's short and sweet, as Joe mentioned. All right, Basecamp manager responsibilities. All right, you're one of those three. And if you're not and you're still attending this, it doesn't matter because why? It means maybe next year you'll switch officer positions and you will be one of those three. So it's important to know this stuff. So here we go. Enforce some naming convention for project artifacts. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I have a suggestion. It's not the end all be all, but I think it's a good way to keep things orderly. Approve completed levels requests following artifact verification. So that, especially if you're a VPE, you'll know where people are in their paths, and you'll also want to approve. When they put in for an award, you need to approve it as soon as you can. Why? Because if someone works so hard to achieve that level completion, you don't want to discourage them. And if you don't want to discourage them, the best thing you can do is get to that award and approve it as soon as you possibly can. And that way, everybody's happy, the people get their awards and they move to the next level, and it helps the club in the long run as well. Track membership progress. We're going to learn a little bit about that. Your external training project. What is that? Well, let's say you have a event outside of Toastmasters and you want to get credit for it in Pathways, you can, but there's a certain way to do it. And you also will have at that external event, you'll have to have at least one Toastmaster that will be doing your evaluation. And then explain pathways, similarities, and differences. That is something that has been changing a little bit, mainly because of level 1 changing as far as what it is composed of. And we'll talk just a slight bit about that. So I won't have a similarities and differences slide, but instead I eliminated that because it's kind of out of date and in place. We'll talk just very briefly about that. So let's get started. Where do you get your access to Basecamp Manager? Well, you go to Pathways over here, and once you click on that, you get this box that comes up. You can log in as a member, and most people, pretty much everyone involved with Pathways will have that. And even if you don't, that's how you get to where you can choose a path. But more importantly, if you're one of the 3, president, vice president of education, secretary, then you'll have access to this. Log in as Basecamp Manager. This is what we're all talking about here. Okay, someone submitted a level for approval. I've completed a level 2. I want that to be approved. Well, one of those 3 people that are the club officers can go into pending requests. And that's where you will see, you'll get an email saying someone submitted a request for approval. And you go there, and that's where you're going to be able to say, I approve this or I don't. And if they can produce artifacts showing, and we'll talk a little bit about that, if we can show artifacts, you may be asked for it, or maybe the VP or the president or the secretary already know that you did all the work you were supposed to do to complete that level. You can approve it. That check mark will approve it, and it will come up with a dialog box so you can say, congratulations, you've made it. And that's great because it gives a little bit more interest to the person who's achieved that goal. Now they're ready to take on the next level. So that's important. And as you can see, this is a level 1 completion. And once you click that checkbox, that you can put in a message, congratulations, and off you go. They are happy as a clam, and you've done your job as VPE. Okay, next, we went to pending requests. Now we're going to member progress. This is very important because this is where you monitor who's doing what with your club. So let's jump into that one. Okay, individual progress. We're going to cover these 3 here that are most important: individual progress, level completions, and path progress. Okay, so we have individual progress, and there you can see it. 2 things, very, very important. I'm going to tell you this now, and it takes a little while to update, so don't be impatient. But what you'll want to do whenever you choose one of these, you're going to want to make sure, number 1, go to options. There's an options button, pull down there, and it says refresh. Refresh it. That goes out to the database. It gets all the latest information that you should be presented. And it takes a while, but it will update everything here so that you'll be looking at the latest details. Ah, but didn't I say details? Well, yes. There's also something else. When you hover over this section of the graph, you will see something that says view details, but there's like a little pull down arrow. If you don't hover over it, you won't see the arrow. So you have to hover, see the arrow, click it, and then hit view details. Now, what is that going to give you? In this case, we're looking at level 3 projects in progress, and you'll see all 5 levels, okay? And who's in progress at each one of those particular level 3 projects. But I want to know more about it. isn't there more? Yes, there is. View details will give you this. Isn't that amazing? What I like about this is here, remember I said in progress, but it also shows you completeds. So you can see what's been completed, you can see what's in progress, and you can see it on a member by member basis. Very important. And people will always say, I'm hunting for that information. How did you get it? You got to click that little box. So remember, the first things you do is refresh and then view details. Make sure you do that, and then you'll get this information. All right, we're moving on. Level 2, level completions. Wow. So somebody may have completed a level. And if they did, that means you approved it, so they are complete. And what do you do here? The first thing you do is, as I mentioned earlier, refresh and view details. So we're going to do that. Here's the graph. Here's the details. And as you can see, level 2 completion, and it gives you the path. So now you know it's a level 2. Level 1 completion over here for Horace is effective coaching, and James Malliott had a path. Look at this, a path completion. That means he's done. He's finished this engaging humor path. Something to think about there. One other thing I will mention at this point in time, since James is actually working on another engaging humor, you can actually, after completing a path, you can, if you so choose to do so, you can enable it again. Pay your 20 bucks and jump right into the same path a second time. That can be done, and that's what James is actually doing. So I just want to put that little note out there for you as informational. All right, so we see that we can get the details here too. And look, dates completed. That can help with your success plan, right? You look at somebody who just finished a completion of anything, and that's part of your club success plan. So you want to have those dates. All right, path progress. This is very busy, as you can see. But what's interesting about this is very important. Over here, you could see status of all paths. And that may be a lot of information to look at. Maybe you're looking at somebody's individual progress. Well, one thing you can do right out of the gate is you could see paths registered but not yet started. What does that mean? That means somebody has picked a path but hasn't gone ahead to proceed. Okay? So that means they're not doing anything with the level 1 at all. All they did was pick the path. Those are the people you chase down as VPE and you say, how come you're not progressing on your path yet? It's been 2 months and you haven't done anything with your level 1. That gives you that information. So you'll want to do that. You'll want to make sure that you can track people. And this is a very important graph to have. The other thing is the paths in progress. Once they're in progress, that means they're working on things. And now this will allow you to find where they are. Are they in a level 3? Have they done a project? Have they done 2 projects in level 3? Maybe they're working on 2 different paths, and they could be both in level 3. So you could find all this information right here, including paths completed. And paths completed is especially interesting because it only gives you the last 90 days. So if someone goes outside the 90 days, you will no longer see their paths completed. So please understand that as well. All right, so we talked a little bit about this information. So let's jump right in and take a look at what's going on with external training. One of your members says, I'm going to give a speech at a Rotary. I'm going to bring along so-and-so as my evaluator because they're a Toastmaster, so they will be present when I do the speech. Well, the interesting thing is all you have to do is say add external training, and that will go for approval. You have to fill in all the details on what the path is and all the other information pertinent to your presentation. But what's nice about it is that goes to your VPE for approval. You must have approval before you go out and do the external training event. So just keep that in mind, that that is something that's available, and it's something that you can pull down. People say, where do you find it? You find it over here, Paths and Learning, those little 3 dots. When you click on that, you'll see Add External Training. So now you know how to find it. Isn't that wonderful? All right, moving on. I told you this was going to be a data dump, and it is. Joe mentioned something about paths and core competencies. When people ask, new members come in, what is Pathways, number one? Well, it's an educational system. It's 11 different paths you can choose from. And this kind of breaks things down for them. So if they have interest in some things over other things, this kind of breaks down which paths address what and in what order. So you get to see this a little bit. Effective coaching is really good as a leadership responsibility, dynamic leadership as well, of course. And so you can see a lot of these are very similar. Some of the paths are addressing specific items such as public speaking and confidence, and maybe that's what you want. Maybe you're preparing for some big event where you have to give a speech. Maybe that is something. Engaging humor always works very well. Presentation mastery works very well. So you can look at this. And where do you find this? At tmdistrict38.org. That's where you find this. It's there, it's downloadable, and by the way, it's actually 11 pages. I'm only showing you the first page. The reason why is it goes into actually 12 pages. It goes into all 11 of these paths in greater detail. So you can find anything you want to know about the paths, all 11 paths, by downloading this particular document, TM38, district38.org. And then you can go here, the short path descriptions. Maybe I just want the Cliff Notes variety of this. Well, that's easy enough to do. You can download this sheet instead. And this will give you a little bit of a summary on each one of the paths. And maybe that's all you need. So it's something to think about. Between these 2 items, you should be able to narrow down which path you want to take and give that to all your new members, because they're the ones that have to choose. All right, path evaluation. One thing I wanted to mention, free host, right? A lot of people, how many people use it? I use it. All 3 of my clubs use it. Okay, one thing I'll tell you about this. You want to make sure when someone does a speech, see over here, you put in what your path is. Very important, the path and then the project. And then when you do that, it'll automatically bring up these buttons. The description, so someone who's going to be your evaluator can see a description of your project, but more importantly, evaluation form. Where do I find the evaluation form? Right on your club agenda website. Isn't that nice? So it's all right there, and it's easy for someone to pick that up. So I just wanted to bring that up. Make sure you have them put all that information. Okay, moving on. Remember I said artifacts and naming conventions. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So somebody did my evaluation. They downloaded it from the website that we just saw. They filled it out because they heard my speech. They did the evaluation at the club, and then they provided it back to me. When do you provide it back to the person that gave the speech? As soon as possible. What do they have to do with it? Here's what they have to do with it. Come up with a naming convention that you can find these things. So in this case, maybe it's a level 1 project. And in this case, level 1, project 1, what would that be? An icebreaker, 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, planning path follows this. So you could say level 1, and it was the first project in that level 1, and it was innovative planning was the path. So you put the IP there. In this case, the next one is another example. Maybe there are 2 speeches to a project. And there are a lot of projects that have 2 speeches. So one additional on the innovative planning path follows. So level 1, project 1B means that was your first one, that's your second one for that one project. And then, of course, electives. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. Level 4 elective, okay. Innovative planning, again, that same path. Level 4, elective 1. And so in a lot of cases, you have to choose multiple electives. And we'll go into that in a moment. Okay, so L4E1, L4E2, and it's all innovative planning. So you have the IP there to show what path it is. Is it relevant? Yes. And I'll tell you why. You get down here in this path. Okay, you can see you have your paths and learning, but you also have See My Documents. That's where you're archiving all your artifacts, all your evaluations. You name them appropriately, you click My Documents, and it has 5 folders, level 1 through level 5. So all you have to do then is take your evaluation and store it in the appropriate subfolder. And then this way you can find it in case the VP of Education wants to see that you have done the work. So everybody's clear on that? It sounds pretty simple. Great. Pathway DTM requirements. 2 learning paths have to be completed. Club officer serving 12 months. Serve 1 complete year as a district officer. Serve successfully as a club mentor or coach. Serve successfully as a club sponsor or conduct a speechcraft or youth leadership program. We're going to talk a little bit about speechcraft. Complete the DTM project, and that's something that once you've completed your first path, you can send to Toastmasters International and they'll give you your DTM project. All right, so we're all caught up on this. Everybody looks good. All right, speechcraft, what is that? Digital component of Pathways. So what it is kind of a reach out session, and it's for people that aren't necessarily in Toastmasters yet. It's more of a way of attracting new members. And what that really does is it allows you to tailor the curriculum for 4, 6, or 8 sessions and include several workshops. So that's the workshops that make up those sessions. So you'll have some members of your club helping you out conduct this. And it's kind of mini meetings, if you will. It walks people through how the meetings are structured, what the roles are, so they can play into the roles of the Toastmaster meeting, and then give their speeches. And what's cool about this is, believe it or not, some of this will carry over as credit if they join a club. So they can do several speeches, and then as soon as they join a club, they can get credit for the speeches that they've already done. So that's very important. There's some piece of this. I had a slide that I took out because slide 24 in your packs that you've received, it's not up to date anymore. And that's because they changed level 1 requirements across all the paths. So just keep that in mind. If you started a path a year ago and you want to start a new one, you'll find that the level 1 requirements are different. They've been updated. Okay. Speechcraft benefits, here you go. Speaking skills are immediate need of such a presentation, so people get an immediate benefit. Practice in a supportive environment, which is what we all do anyway, but this is for people that are thinking about joining Toastmasters. And Pathways credit, right? So you get a head start on when you finally join the club, and that's what it's all about. So we went through this a little fast, and I want to tell you that that's all I have, and we have just a little bit of time here. So I think I can field a few questions, and if not, the other thing I want to do is I want to give you my contact information right here, so that if you have any questions that we don't get to, or maybe that occur in your mind a day or 2 from now, please contact me, because I'll be more than happy to help you out with any items that you may have. And with that, I am going to now take any questions. Do we have anything in the chat?
Yes, Paul, I'm going to mention two questions. The first one is from Sylvia. The question is, can a person change paths before starting one if they decide the one selected is not what they really want?
Yes, yes, but there's a time limitation. So the other thing I want to mention too, though, is when you select a path, there's also an assessment that you can take. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can take an assessment. It's a large number of questions, and it comes up with a recommendation of what's a best match and then 2 alternate matches. And you'll want to copy that down if you go through the assessment because it does not save those results. So, but you can change your path. You have to contact Toastmasters and say, you know what, I just enabled this. I believe it's a 30-day deadline. So you have to notify them and tell them you want to change your path within those 30 days. And then they'll allow you to enable a different path. But you still have to know which one you want. So it's important to figure that out with the sheets that I spoke of earlier on tmdistrict38.org, and also the assessment can help you out as well. Next
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, Paul. I believe my club member has a similar question, and I think we call headquarter. They were saying something like 60 days, but always check with headquarter. They have the final say.
Yeah.
But yep, yeah, it's changeable, and members like that they have the flexibility, not like, oops, I chose a path that I don't really like. And
Yes.
yeah, they really like that flexibility. Great question, Sylvia. Second question is from Sharon. Paul, if a person gives a speech at another club, how does that person receive the credit at their club?
Okay. All you have to do is bring an evaluation form with you. Since the other club is still all Toastmasters, anybody at that club can do the evaluation when you give the presentation to their club instead of your own home club.
Great, thank you, Paul. And those are the two questions posted in the chat. And any of the audience member, you can raise your hand if you rather ask Paul questions. Personally, I do ask, like asking personally. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you.
I see Evelyn.
Evelyn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Quickly, I attempted to go into the base camp as the manager to log in.
Yeah.
And I logged in with my usual login as a TM, my email and my password. However, I was not able to get in. Is that a universal login?
Well, in the Toastmaster International website, so it's toastmasters.org. It's I haven't used my email. I use my membership ID.
Oh, okay.
So I use that, and then you have a there's a way you can reset the password too if you need to.
Right.
But that's what I would go with. I mean, I always just use my membership ID, so I don't really have too much of a problem with it.
Okay, and thank you for that. And one other quick question.
Mm-hmm.
When I first joined, I joined two paths, strategic planning and innovative planning. And the VPE of the club archived the first path. So when I go in, I only see one of the paths, IP. I don't see the strategic planning, strategic relationships, I think. And I just wanted to find out, how can I have that corrected, or just go to archives and pull it up that way?
I think archive would be the way. As far as I know, I think that's a way of finalizing things. And usually when you archive it, it's after you're pretty much done with everything you needed to do with that path.
Yeah, and I didn't finish it. I only did level 1 on it.
Ooh, in that case, y'all would contact Toastmasters International for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure. And I see Bill Kraus.
Yes, it's not really a pathway related question, but I just wanted to remind everybody that you have to also, once you complete a path or complete an award, you still have to go through Club Central to assign the appropriate club the award, and that doesn't
Yeah.
come automatically.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is a high recommendation I have, especially for VPEs who are going to be doing most of this, you'll want to approve pathways and then as soon as possible, almost like an atomic event, go in and approve it in Club Central as well, so that they don't get out of sync. It's very easy for those to get out of sync and becomes extremely puzzling. So you'll never want to let that happen. Make it clean. Approve one, approve another. And that's what you need to do to keep everything pretty much clean and understandable. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I have just a moment here, but you could see, I think in here is the navigator, but there was there's besides this, there's manager tutorials that you can take so you can get into a little bit more of the navigational aspects of how to do Basecamp management. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is for your members, we're going to be doing new membership training, and that will be for the new members in district38.org. So you'll want to keep an eye open for that and make sure that your new members will know about that. It's important because it's a little bit tough for them to understand, and I'll go into a little bit of the aspects of being able to do things like access the assessment, right? So that they have a little bit of assistance on which path they're going to take. And please make sure that you do include those two other documents that are very important as well, because this one, which is really important, and the one before it, which is the core competencies. And that's an 11-page document, but try to get the electronic copies, download them from tmdistrict38.org, put them in your new membership packets. Really important. And that will give people the guidance they need.
Thank you, Paul. Would you mind putting your email address into the chat? Because it was a bit dim on the last slide, or member people can copy it from the last
Sure.
slide. Yep, thank you.